by Robert McCloskey. This is a story of some baby ducks, which are called ducklings, in a big city. Is that a very good place for ducklings? No, it's a very dangerous place. Make way means to get out of the way so we can get through. But we will see in this book that people in the city are not used to seeing ducklings, or making way for them. Pay attention to the details as I read them. Mr. and Mrs. Mallard were looking for a place to live. But every time Mr. Mallard saw what looked like a nice place, Mrs. Mallard said it was no good. There were sure to be foxes in the woods or turtles on the water, and she was not going to raise a family where there might be foxes or turtles, so they flew on and on. Why does Mrs. Mallard not want to live near foxes and turtles? Well, I know foxes and turtles like to eat eggs and maybe even little baby ducklings. When they got to Boston, they felt too tired to fly any further. There was a nice pond in the public garden with a little island on it. The very place to spend the night, quacked Mr. Mallard. So down they flapped. Why is an island a good place for ducks to spend the night? Well, it's safe from all the other people and the other predators. The only thing that could get there would be something that could swim over, right? Next morning, they fished for their breakfast in the mud at the bottom of the pond, but they didn't find much. What do you think they wanted to find for breakfast? Ducks eat all kinds of things. They eat fish, some small fish. They also eat plants that are in the water. They'll eat the root of the plant. They eat little aquatic animals that live down there, so animals that live in the bottom of the lake. Ducks eat a lot of stuff. Just as they were getting ready to start on their way, a strange, enormous bird came by. It was pushing a boat full of people, and there was a man sitting on its back. "Good morning," quacked Mr. Mallard, being polite. The big bird was too proud to answer, but the people in the boat threw peanuts into the water, so the Mallards followed them all around the pond and got another breakfast, better than the first. Why do you think the big bird didn't answer when Mr. Mallard said good morning to him? Look at the illustration. Is that a real bird? It's not, is it? It's just a fake bird on the big boat. "I like this place," said Mrs. Mallard as they climbed out on the bank and waddled along. "Why don't we build a nest and raise our ducklings right in this pond? There are no foxes and no turtles, and the people feed us peanuts. What could be better?" "Good," said Mr. Mallard, delighted that at last Mrs. Mallard had found a place that suited her. But... "Look out!" squawked Mrs. Mallard, all of a dither. "You'll get run over." And when she got her breath, she added, "This is no place for babies. With all these horrid things rushing about, we'll have to look for somewhere else." Why do you think the boy on the bike didn't slow down? Well, there's a bunch of reasons. He could have not seen him. He also lives in a big city. He's probably not used to seeing ducks. Or maybe he just didn't care. The author doesn't tell us, does he? So they flew over Beacon Hill and round the State House, but there was no place there. Why do you think that ducks wouldn't want to live in a tall building? There's nothing really up there for them to eat, right? We talked about what they like to eat. That's not a really good place for them to eat. They like to swim, and there's no little ponds or anything up there. They looked in Louisburg Square, but there was no water to swim in. What kind of place do you think the Mallards are looking for? Well, we know that ducks like to swim, and most of their food is on or around water, right? So they probably want somewhere with water, but they also want somewhere with land where they can be safe from predators that may want to eat them or hurt their baby ducklings. Then they flew over the Charles River. "This is better," quacked Mr. Mallard. "That island looks like a nice quiet place, and it's only a little way from the public garden." "Yes," said Mrs. Mallard, remembering the peanuts. "That looks like just the right place to hatch ducklings." Do you think this is a good place to hatch ducklings? Think about it. I don't really know what I think. I mean, that island looks pretty safe, but a big city's not a very safe place for ducklings. So parts of it are good, but parts of it aren't good. So they chose a cozy spot among the bushes near the water and settled down to build their nest. And only just in time, for now they were beginning to molt, and their old wing feathers started to drop out, and they would not be able to fly again until the new ones grew in. How do you think the ducks feel about not being able to fly? Well, they're used to it, right? I guess that happens a lot, but it's probably a little bit scary. They can't just fly away if something goes wrong. How would you feel? But of course they could swim, and one day they swam over to the park on the riverbank, and there they met a policeman called Michael. Michael fed them peanuts, and after that the mallards called on Michael every day. How do you think that Michael feels about the ducks? Look at his face. You can tell that he kind of likes feeding them, doesn't he? And he always has peanuts for them because they visit him every day. Why do you think they call on him every day? Probably because they know he has peanuts and he'll feed them, right? Alright, let's stop right here for today and let's summarize what's happened so far. When we summarize a story, we think of the most important events. Summarizing helps us remember and understand. So I'm going to start. In this story, a mother and father duck are looking for a place to live. They have trouble finding a safe place in the city. What would you say happened next was the most important parts? Well, I'm thinking about all of the places they looked, right? Think about the places that they looked that we read so far. We could say they looked all over the city for a safe place to live and decided to live on an island in the middle of a river. All right, I think that we read enough that we can do our story map, okay? We can map a little bit of our story that we read so far, right? Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is the setting of our story. So where are the ducks in our story so far, for the most part? They're in the big city, aren't they? And we said that's really not a very safe place for ducks, but they seem to like it. So let's draw some tall buildings, like this. And we'll add a bunch of windows, like this. Add some details like this so we know it's a city. Here's all our little windows. Okay, and then also they have that pond, that little lake that river that they decided to live in. So I'll draw the river over here. It's got that bridge over it. This is the kind of details that when you draw it, then people know what you've drawn, right? Okay, so that's a pretty good one. They can draw the road. Remember, a little bike gets them. Okay, so a big city. Okay. Now, who are the characters in our story? Remember, characters are the people or the animals that the story is mostly about. So who are the main characters in our story? Some ducks, right? The mallards. So we'll draw them just in black. Let's draw a head right here. Here's his tail. And then we can draw him some wings. This is him flying. He's got like a ring neck. A little tail like this. And here's this, and here's his beak. Oh goodness, his beak's getting crazy, isn't it? Okay, he's got a big beak. Okay, there's our Mr. Mallard, and then we can draw Mrs. Mallard down here. Draw her like this. She can be standing up. She's not flying. Okay, here's her beak. Okay, so there's Mr. and Mrs. Mallard. Okay, our main characters. It's not the best drawing, but I did the best I could on the computer. Okay, so here's our setting is in the city, and our characters were the mama and daddy duck, the mallards, right? They're looking for a place to live. What is their problem? Just said it, didn't I? They're looking for a safe place to hatch their ducklings. She's gonna have some ducklings, and they want somewhere safe. So I'm gonna draw a nest. Okay, and then we'll draw some eggs in there, because their main problem is they want to find somewhere to build their nest for their baby ducks, right? All right, maybe tomorrow we'll hear the solution to our story. Let's find out. See you guys tomorrow.